Hello, good morning. Welcome to NewsDesk. We're live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125 across all our social media handles. We're Joy News on TV. Coming up, organized labor says it will escalate its action beyond a nationwide strike over the sale of SSNIT stake in hotels to public officials should government fail to negotiate within the next 1 month. Also in this bulletin, mixed reactions greet new legislative instrument that will allow members of parliament and ministers to use sirens and drive without speed limits. Stay, because we also have a conversation with Dr. Kwabna Bimpatando, his Deputy Director General, Quality and Access at the Ghana Education Service. My name is Faustina Safo. Take a seat. Be my guest. Thanks for staying with us. Now, organized labor says it will escalate its action beyond a nationwide strike over the sale of SSNIT stake in hotels to public officials, vowing to hold the government accountable on various national issues. President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Eric Kabonu, who spoke on PM Express on Monday, expressed frustration that their previous silence has been misinterpreted as complacency. Well, on Monday, we know that services came to a halt because of the strike action by organized labor. They were protesting the sale of 60% stake in 4 hotels owned by SSNIT to Rock City Hotel. But we also know that Rock City Hotel has withdrawn their bid, and we also know that SSNIT has abrogated that contract. Well, on the back of that, yesterday, organized labor called off their strike. They're willing to renegotiate with government, looking at ways to better turn the fortunes around of this 4 hotel. Let's speak to some of our guys on the ground. They were on the ground yesterday checking the impact of the strike action. Collins Frimpong was at the University of Ghana. He joins us live with more. Collins, tell us what's happening on the ground. Well, we're still working the lines to see if we can get Collins. We would also take you to Kumasi and gauge the impact of the strike action, which has now been called off. We're looking at if indeed, yesterday we told you that at some hospitals, especially at CAT, some patients were stranded as a result of the strike action. We'll go to Kumasi and check the impact now that they have called off their strike. Now, if you just tune in, we're discussing organized labor decision to call off their strike yesterday after a crunch meeting with leadership. Now, they initially called for a nationwide strike action because they were protesting the sale of 60% stake in 4 hotels owned by SSNIT to Rock City Hotel. But then we know that Rock City Hotel withdrew their bid, and we also know that SSNIT had to abrogate that contract, even though Parliament had approved and the National Pensions Authority had also approved of that contract. We'll take you back to them when they are on the line, but the Ministry of Transport is seeking to bring before it an ally. Now, this ally is seeking to ensure that members of Parliament in Parliament, whenever they step out, they are amending portions of the Road Traffic Regulations 2012. Now, these new changes will permit members of Parliament and ministers of state to fix sirens or bells as warning appliances. Now, let's hear from some stakeholders. Franklin Kujo is president of Imani, as well as Cecil Crab, his CEO of Top Tech Transport and Logistics.
It's telling us that you want to be giving preferential treatment on our bad roads, badly lit roads in terms of, poor visibility, just everything that is bad on our roads. Where the roads isn't done properly, I don't think this particular airline serves its purpose at all. And I think it's unconscionable that we would even think of something like this. All the arguments that have been advanced that I've read so far in support of it, frankly speaking, falls flat. I can't believe that anyway, don't forget Parliament some time back used to do so many things. And some someone, who was it that said, I've forgotten my government lessons. Who was it that said the only thing Parliament cannot do is to change a man into a woman? Was it Montesquieu? I've forgotten who it was. In any case, I'm still having a good laugh. So look, it doesn't make sense. I don't think this bill, this LI should actually pass. And if they try passing it, I'm sure many people would rise up against it. Because frankly speaking, it's just unconscionable. So, frankly speaking, really, that they want to go about their work efficiently. Don't forget, my good brother, that 3 years ago, the presidency actually issued a directive that no minister, no MP should use a siren at all. Do you remember? Just Google it, you see that story. So what changed? You know, I'm surprised. What actually changed? That all of a sudden we should accord our dear honorables the opportunity to speed without limit on these bad roads. It's even a danger to them, isn't it? And then at the same time, just make noise during the day by disturbing the peace. Already people are suffering on these roads anyway. I mean, what's the point in... look, it doesn't make sense.
I've really been disappointed with Parliament. This bill must not go through, it must be withdrawn as soon as possible because of certain reasons. One, do we have the roads itself? Let me just cite my example, okay, before. A few years, I traveled to the Netherlands and I had to meet the Minister of Transportation of that country. I sat in a train, got to the minister's office, and then I saw someone riding a bicycle close to the minister's office. So the same gentleman who was not in suit, he was just in shirt. And then he greeted me, "Are you Mr. Gabra?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "This is the minister." In fact, I had to remove my tie as soon as possible, and because he was just wearing a shirt. I mean, it was just so simple. And the minister sat in the train and then arrived at his office. That is what we should look at for our developed country than bringing in motorcycles, very expensive, to bless sirens, to hold rather traffic up. I can just imagine if I live somewhere around Adenta and I'm coming to work and then an MP or maybe 6 MPs are also going to work at Parliament. I can just imagine what will happen. That means that every 4 or 5 minutes, you will have to pave that way for the siren or the motorcade to pass by you. And sometimes you just have slim chances of touching your car. Now, the other issue is that what happens if your car is scratched by such vehicles? Are they going to sort people out? Right, that's also another issue for another day. But I could just imagine the number of motorcycles and then the police that will be deployed with the taxpayers' money. This will mean that there will be more traffic, okay? More traffic. Already we are struggling. I was of the view that, so why don't we rather look at the issue on segregated roads for the Ayalolo buses, which has been my issue. And if we are able to do that, I don't think the MP will even have to enjoy a motorcade to his office.
Well, let's get more on this. Joining us now on phone is Member of Parliament for South Dai constituency. His name is Roxton Nelson Dafiamekbo. He's also a member of the Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. Thank you for your time here on Newsdesk. Now, let's take your general thoughts about this LI laid before Parliament. We know that portions of it is seeking to amend the road traffic regulation, and we know that this new changes, if passed, will grant members of Parliament and ministers state privilege previously reserved to emergency services. I'm hoping you can hear me now.
Yeah, it's better now.
Beautiful. So, first of all, let me get your thoughts about this new legislative instrument. Do you think it's in the right order?
Well, whether or not it's the right order is not for me to say. This is a proposal from the Ministry of Transport. And mind you, they are the agency over the road safety commission that brought the house. But what exactly is the concern? The concern is that extending the use of sirens to MPs will be abused. Where is the evidence of that? And two, a law that is yet to be implemented, we are already crying that it will be abused. Let's be fair. The category of persons that are being made eligible to use the siren, if you look at that Venn diagram, all the security agencies in this country will use it, including NACOP, the Narcotic Control Commission, including the Cyber Security Authority, including National Security Apparatus, including the National Investigations Bureau, including what we call the police service, the prison service, but all the security agents. Now, I have seen a situation where an MP was arrested and actually prosecuted for one passing, and when he got into traffic, decided to, as it were, use the side road to get to Parliament early. I've also seen an MP who put on his double hazard and tried to in fact, a leader of the House, and I'll mention his name on air, the Honorable Ahmad Kofi was rushing to Parliament over a very serious business. He was prosecuted and fined. So the issue arose as to whether or not we shouldn't legislate and make MPs eligible. So if MPs are not supposed to be eligible as the arguments are being made, then we scrap every entity. That's in my opinion. So that for instance, why do you want to include the Cyber Security Authority to use a siren, for instance?
Now,
for instance, why do you want to say that it is okay for a Supreme Court judge to use a siren, but it's not okay for an MP to use a siren? So if we want to argue about the morality of the law, let us be comprehensive. Don't let us isolate MPs alone and bastardize us as if MPs are doing something untoward. If it's not good for a Supreme Court judge, then it is certainly not good for an MP.
But the concern now is that looking at the number of members of parliament, and I'm just going through portions of this airline, it will now permit the fitting of sirens or bells as warning appliances on specific classes of vehicles, including those owned by justices of the Supreme Court and members of parliament, as well as ministers of state. So we're looking at safety on the roads. If all our members of parliament are on the road using siren, the Supreme Court justices using siren, ministers of state using sirens, what chaos are we expecting on the road? That's the concern of many. You think that it's not necessary?
Now, I agree with you that in the extreme sense of the law, you may have all the 275 MPs using the siren, but all the 275 MPs may not be on the road at the same time. That is one. Two, ministers of state are already using the siren. I have even seen businessmen, not of some standing, use a siren. I've even seen some, in addition to a siren, some are even using a motorcade. I have seen chiefs, not even up to the status of a paramount chief, use a siren. So let the argument be holistically made that we should limit the use of sirens to the heads of organs of state. So the President, the Chief Justice, the Speaker of Parliament. That's all. If we can make such an argument. But to say that all the 275 MPs will be on the road at the same time, blaring with sirens, it's perfect. And then second, For instance, do you know the number of employees working with the National Cyber Security Authority? There are in excess of 500. And yet Cyber Security Authority will be using a siren. Do you know the number of employees working with the Narcotics Control Commission? It's nearly 1,000. So the numbers doesn't mean that every single one of them will be using a siren mandatorily. For instance, I may not have it on my vehicle. I may not, but I'm a member of Parliament. Because the law is not to be applied mandatorily. There's a greater element of pollution there. If you want to apply the law in your favor, there's that election to do, and they elect not to do it. So it doesn't automatically mean that all the 275 MPs will have sirens blaring on their vehicles. You know. So, I share in the sentiment being expressed. But my strongest position is that let the argument be holistically made.
Okay, let's look at another portion of this LI, which is driving without speed limit. So we have this number of Supreme Court justices, we have this number of ministers of state, and also members of parliament driving without speed limit. With the kind of roads we have in Ghana, the concern is that it will escalate accidents on the stretch. You feel otherwise?
Yeah, no, I don't feel otherwise. I agree with that. But it goes without saying that where a user of a vehicle will be minded to use a siren, it goes without saying that the person will be driving at a certain speed. Now, where, for instance, you get to a town or you get to a township where the speed limit is 30 kilometers per hour, all right? Then the law says that the minister of state or the member of parliament who is using that siren is not supposed to observe that speed limit. That is fine, particularly when he's able to conduct himself in such a way that it doesn't occasion a road accident. So the fact that the law is permitting you to put a siren on your vehicle doesn't mean that you cannot observe other road traffic regulations. For instance, when you get to a zebra crossing, it doesn't mean that you cannot stop for pedestrians to cross. For instance, it doesn't mean that when you get to a traffic light, you don't have to stop for the green to come before you move on.
But if you're driving without speed limits and you have sirens on and the traffic light has signaled red, you have all the right and legal backing to run by this traffic light. And that's the concern if we have 275 members of parliament all on the road at different points in time. Won't it be chaotic? That's the concern.
I like the fact that you make the point that at different points in time. The different points in time means that you may have 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles at different locations on the highway. There's no way you can create chaos at all. Because I have seen a situation where about 2, 3, 4, 5 ambulances are on the way and they are mending their way through the traffic just to get to a health facility with a patient that is in a critical condition. That is a still driving. So if members of parliament are being added to this category of eligible criteria of persons who can use it, I think then it will be necessary for them to take better precautions so they do not flout other road traffic regulations. That is the point that I want to stress here.
Daffy Amepo, his MP for South Dive, for your time here on Newsdesk. Now let's take you to our earlier story about organized labor. They promised that they will escalate their strike action should government fail to heed to their concerns when they go back to the table to renegotiate. We know that just yesterday they called off their strike action because Senate had heeded to their concerns and abrogated the contract that sought to sell 60% stake in 4 hotels to Rock City Hotel owned by Brian Echampong, who is the Agric Minister. Now, let's go back on the phone lines and speak to Collins Frimpong. He's a student journalist at the University of Ghana. Yesterday, he was on the ground monitoring the impact of the strike action. Now that it has been called off, Collins, what can you report?
Right. So yesterday in the morning when I spoke to you, I told you about the situation on the University of Ghana campus where academic lectures would not really in full force because students were not looking into their various classrooms. And also I told you about how most of the streets on campus had turned to cemeteries. But this morning, it's not the case, all because of yesterday's press briefing that organized labor had, saying that they have given SSNIT and government 1 month to go on the negotiation table to engage them to see the way forward. Since the lectures have been going on smoothly this morning, everyone has been tripping to their classrooms, expecting their lecturers, and their lecturers who have been around teaching. So in terms of lectures, everything is going well on campus. I also had class this morning. So everything is going on well. The strike that UTAG initiated protest have been called off. So we see after 1 month. But after that, or away from that, on campus this morning, Speaker of Parliament, Aban Kingsford Osman Babin, has come to the University of Ghana campus because of the public forum ongoing. So the University of Ghana's Parliament House is celebrating their 20th anniversary. So the Parliament House was established in 2004. That's the first tertiary Parliament House that was established in 2004. So the Speaker of Parliament, Kingsford Aban Osman Babin, is here this morning, and he will be delivering, he will be providing a speech on, he will be providing a speech on private members bill. You know, it's been 4 years since we introduced that in Ghana here, and we are going to deliver a speech will be assessing how the private members bill is affecting Ghana's democracy. And also after that, there will be a roundtable that will feature the Member of Parliament for Adina constituency, Honorable Francis Desir Susu. And apart from him, we will have the Deputy Attorney General, and he also doubles as the Deputy Minister for Justice, Honorable Alfred Yebua. He will be part of the roundtable discussion. And also Dr. Mame Ajua Chechi Jando, who is the senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Political Science Department, will also be part of the roundtable discussion, as well as Mr. Same Oben, who is the Executive Director for Parliamentary Network Africa, that's Pan-Africa, and they are part of the partners of this particular program. The table discussion will focus on the topic assessing the legislative and the executive relationship, a case study of the private members bill regime in Ghana. So within the 4-year period that we have had the private members bill regime in Ghana, today we will be assessing so far how it is affecting Ghana's democracy, especially between the legislature and the executive.
Thank you, Collins Frimpong. He is a student journalist at the University of Ghana. My colleague Kenneth Jesse is also on the ground. He's at the ACA Psychiatric Hospital. He's checking the impact now that the strike has been called off. Kenneth, what can you report? Unfortunately, we seem to have lost him, but he has to.
Well, we're currently at the ACA Psychiatric Hospital, as you rightly mentioned, and you know, it's one of the places that attention wasn't turned to in the midst of the strike yesterday. But we've been here for a while, and we see that the OPD is filled with you know, a lot of patients, and we have the clinical coordinator joining me right now to speak to us on the situation. You're live on Joy News. Thank you for your time. I mean, is this how the OPD looks like on a normal Tuesday like this?
So on a normal Tuesday at Accra Psychiatric Hospital, it's very busy. We are expecting about 150 to 200 patients coming in on a Tuesday. But it looks like the numbers are down. We were expecting that we would have more patients coming because yesterday we weren't running the outpatient department services. And so today the numbers are down, but the day is young, so maybe they'll come in later on.
Okay, so let me take you back to yesterday. Paint a picture of what happened yesterday, for example, when patients came to this hospital and they were turned away because the OPD wasn't working.
Okay, so most of the health unions had a roadmap, and the roadmap was not for us to attend the outpatient and patients were coming to the department. So what we were doing was attending to just emergency cases. And so patients will walk in, you don't have anyone to attend to you. A few of them sat around and were hoping that doctors will come and attend to them or nurses will come and attend to them. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. A few times we had to go to them to tell them that, yes, this is what was happening. And so they had to go back home. But as I said initially, we did attend to cases that came in as emergencies, and then patients that were admitted or on admission on the wards were attended to by the doctors and the nurses.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Faustina, there you had it. So it's quite the opposite. She's saying that although the day is a bit young, but ordinarily around this time on a normal Tuesday, you would have seen more patients than you do see here. Perhaps because the strike is still in force, and then they are hoping that as the day goes by, more people will troop in to seek medical care at the outpatient department of the Accra Psychiatric Hospital. So that is the situation here on the ground. From here, we are moving to the Adabraka Polyclinic to also gauge the mood there. But from the Accra Psychiatric Hospital, patients at the OPDs are not as many as they would have wished.
Thanks for staying with us here on NewsDesk. Well, the Ghana Education Service is seeking to augment its policies to make Ghana's educational sector better. Well, we know GS says it will work with all stakeholders to make this a reality. Let's get more on this. Joining us in the studio now is Dr. Kwabena Bempatando, his Deputy Director General, Quality and Access Control at the Ghana Education Service. Thank you for your time here.
Thank you.
On NewsDesk. So let's start with the just ended Basic Education Certificate examination. What's your assessment of how it went?
Well, thank you. I think that for the most part, we've had a very successful BECE. This is the first year that we've had the students being assessed based on the new curriculum, which is the Common Core Program curriculum, which introduced a number of new subjects, but as well as improvements to the existing subjects. And for that matter, this year, BECE lasted 6 days instead of the usual 5 days. Instead of the 9 subjects, there are 11 possible subjects, even though not all students or no student really took all 11 subjects, but rather there were some subject combinations. The minimum a student could take was as low as 7, and the maximum was 11. We introduced a number of subjects like computing, as well as Arabic into the mix that allowed students to have a bit more variety. Overall, we believe that we've had a very successful conduct of the examination in collaboration with the West African Examination Council.
Now, we know that you've been in talks with the West African Examination Council. Just during the VEC, there is concerns about teachers aiding students to cheat during the examination. They had invigilators being implicated in the just ended Basic Education Certificate examination. They are even contemplating getting in private invigilators. Has this concern been brought to your attention?
Well, the issue of malpractice continues to decrease from year to year, but obviously we continue to see malpractice in all examinations that are conducted, whether you are looking at here in a West Africa sub-region or on the continent at large, or even globally. Even where they have the most advanced technologies, there are still ways that students are finding to cheat on an examination. However, there is a lot of work that we are doing with the West Africa Examination Council, the Ghana Police Service, as well as the Ministry of Education, and then CSOs, in always looking at how can we improve and improve the examination, as well as reduce malpractice. Over the past few years, there are a number of things that we have put in place. in collaboration with the West Africa Examination Council. The first one, which we have talked about a bit, is examination serialization. And basically what it is that if you take, for example, the multiple choice questions, the same 40 questions is taken by every student across the country. But now we are doing district level and sometimes circuit level, and we are moving to school level serialization. What that means is that if you and I are taking the same English examination, your question 1, because it's serialized for me in another district, is my question 7. So the same question, what is matter? And the answer is matter is anything that has weight and occupies space, as we used to chew, pour, pass, and forget.
Yeah.
But yours is question 1, your answer is B. Mine is question 7, my answer is D. So what that does is that if anybody gets what WAEC or we call foreknowledge of the exam 5 minutes before the exam, because the examination bags are opened just at the time that they are supposed to start the examination. But people, through other means, are trying to get foreknowledge before the examinations are distributed. If I get that question and I answer, usually the way people cheat is they will quickly answer 1 to 40 and then go on the board or share online question 1A, question 2B, and so on and forth. If they do that and I am sitting in a different examination center with a serialized paper and I follow yours, I may get all 40 wrong. So we noticed over a period of time that especially the rogue websites that were doing this realized that there wasn't any way that they could actually make money on this. So that's the first thing we have done. Number 2 is our close collaboration with West Africa Examination Council on invigilators. When our teachers invigilate for WAEC, usually sometimes they are moved around, so it's not necessarily the same school that they teach that they invigilate in. But what we are also doing with WAEC is that as soon as there is an identification of a teacher or anybody or an invigilator, no, let me not say a teacher, but an invigilator who is aiding in malpractice, if the person happens to be a teacher, they go through the WAEC disciplinary process. Then at Ghana Education Service, we also take them through a disciplinary process, including dismissal from the service because of that practice. And so those are 2 key things that we are doing. There has been a lot of work, myself as well as the Director General of the Ghana Education Service and a few of our directors, the SHS President, as well as 2 other SHS members. We have COBS, which is the heads of basic schools. We have representation from different universities that all sit on the WAEC Council. And one of the things that we are discussing is moving more into technology or using technology to aid in the administration of exams. WAEC we have been discussing on council computer-assisted testing, where students will go into an examination hall, question banks of the same difficulty will randomize in its appearance on a screen for a student to answer. When you do computer-assisted testing, you drastically reduce the malpractice in terms of examination malpractice because students can only answer what is on their screen. They have a limited amount of time to answer. They are being monitored in a room. So we are eventually and gradually moving towards how do we constantly eliminate it. But in the meantime, we are using some of these interventions, including serialization, stiffer punishment for those that are found culpable. And then not just for the staff, but also for the students. You know, students who either bring foreign materials into the examination hall, write answers on their laps and on their thighs and on their arms and things like that. When they are discovered, we go through the process of sometimes canceling that result or sometimes canceling their entire paper. And before examinations are conducted, we do a thorough sensitization of all of our students to understand exactly the rules that govern examination. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is to have our parents and our teachers collaborate in getting children to understand that the exam is merely an assessment of their performance so that as they move to the next level, whether from BEC to C, from JHS to SHS, or from SHS to university, the true assessment of the student's performance is what can help us in terms of putting together interventions that will help the student at the next stage. So it does not help you, the student, nor does it help the parent or the school to engage in malpractice, because it only gives us the wrong picture of the student's true performance.
This new way of cheating, where we have invigilators aiding candidates, WIAC, the other time we had a conversation, said they would furnish GS with details of these invigilators so that you can take disciplinary actions against them. Have they furnished you with those details?
Every year. Every year
so
they furnish
this
we receive them, and every year we go through the process, and every year we dismiss a number of teachers, you know, who are found culpable. Just because we don't put it out in the public doesn't mean we don't do anything about it. But every single year, whatever WIAC furnishes us with, we go through the entire disciplinary process as laid down by our conditions of service. And we take them all the way through to the Council of the Ghana Education Service to make a decision. And every year, with collaboration from unions and from the teaching staff and everything, once we take you through the approved disciplinary process, every year we terminate people's employment based on malpractice.
How many names have they tabled before your...
This exams just ended. So as at now, we have not received, WIAC just ended the examination yesterday. We would have, WIAC after the examination will begin to conduct WASI. But in between that, they will probably call for a meeting in terms of the BECE. And then they will discuss, we will discuss at council the number of incidents that took place, what actions were taken, which staff are Ghana Education staff, and then which staff are also WIAC staff, or who are independent of the two. And those that are Ghana Education Service staff, just like every year, it will be transmitted to us through the Director General. In fact, the Director General of the Ghana Education Service is also the chair of the WIAC Council. And so we have a double responsibility in terms of what happens at WIAC as well as what happens at the GAS. And because integrity is critical to us in terms of the integrity of the examination, once it is transmitted to us, just like every other year, we'll take the steps and take it all the way up to council. And whoever is found culpable this year, just like last year and the previous years, will be terminated based on the conditions of service of the Ghana Education Service.
Let's talk figures before we move into your preparation for WIAC and WASI as we move forward. Let's look at the outstanding debt. How much do you owe WIAC for the just ended BEC? And have you cleared all they need for WASI?
As I sit here with you, I don't know the exact outstanding debt.
Okay.
What I do know is that resources were made available to WIAC for them to be able to conduct the BEC successfully. And the BEC has been able to be conducted successfully. And what I do know is that arrangements are being made at the Ministry of Education level to ensure that whatever cost, whatever may be a hindrance to WIAC being able to implement or conduct the WASI, those hindrances are taken away. As at now, we don't have any indication from WIAC that they are not in a position to be able to conduct the WASI exam. But what I do know is that resources that are necessary for them to conduct the exams, they do have. As at now, I cannot furnish you with exactly how much is owed, but I do know that arrangements have been made through the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Finance to ensure that WIAC has the necessary resources to conduct the exams.
There are calls from different political parties as we move on to the election, calling for the review of the free SHS policy. You are in the helm of affairs. Do you think a review is what we need?
Well, I think that when people talk about a review, it is as though review is an event in time. It is not an event in time. Since the implementation of the free SHS, and for that matter, since time immemorial that we've started, we have been educating our children, we are constantly examining our performance. We don't wait till SHS or JHS 3 for children to be examined the first time. Every term, we do a midterm, we do a final. So we do constant assessment. And the same happens with the free SHS. The free SHS has not been the same way it has been since it was announced by His Excellency, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in February 2017. So we have a constant assessment of our performance as Ghana Education Service, Ministry of Education, even the country as a whole. conversations that happen in media, conversations that happen at the kitchen table, and then assessments that are ongoing at the ministry level, at the GES level, district level, regional level, and school level. We always go back to outcomes and recommendations from those conversations, and then we make adjustments based on the best way to ensure that we implement. So this conversation around review is as though it is an exercise in a point in time, but people need to understand that it's a continuum. And we have been constantly assessing and making adjustments based on recommendations and what will positively impact learners.
Do you agree there needs to be some sort of review?
Well, like I'm saying, I think you are asking for it as though it has to be, let's pause and let's look at it. You know, when you are on a flight and you are in mid-air and the pilot needs to change course because of either clouds or turbulence or anything, the pilot in the mid-air don't say, let me stop this plane and park it somewhere and look for a new route. The pilot continues to fly, makes assessment based on what navigators are telling them, and then they make decisions to course correct in order to avoid turbulence, in order to avoid any major danger. The idea of the way the review conversation is happening is as though we have to have a point in time where we have paused and we are looking at it. And what I have submitted to you is that it is an ongoing assessment of the implementation, which has been happening since 2017. So I do not understand why there need to be a point in time where, let's say, okay, we've done it for 8 years, let's review. Over that 8-year period, we have constantly been assessing. And I don't think that that should change, because even as a technical person, so what does that mean? Does it mean that in September 2018 or September 2024, let's stop free SHS? Every child now, if you're going to school, pay for it until we do some review at a point in time. No, it is a constant assessment that we are doing, and that has not changed. We continue to listen, and I think it is important to understand. I have lots of colleagues in the CSO space, and they share ideas. Dr. Peter Anti, Kofi Asare, and other colleagues, they share ideas with us all the time. From time to time, we go for retreats, we meet them at meetings and other things, and they share ideas. And some of their recommendations, once we run it by the implementers, the heads, and all those things, adjustments are made to how we do it. Little example, but a practical example of it is when we started the free SHS, what we call the non-perishable percentage of funds that went to schools was 20%, based on the recommendations of CHAS. As I speak to you now, it is 30%. So it is an assessment of where we are and the fact that more of the work is being done at the school level, so it has been moved to 30%. There is a conversation around moving it to 40% and 50%. There are even people who are suggesting that let's give 100% of the funds to the schools and let the schools manage, so from government to the schools. So constantly, recommendations are brought in. Constantly, assessments are done. In 2018, when more and more people were knocking on the door of free SHS, we made a decision that we needed to assess our capacity to take in all those students. And when we did the assessment of the capacity to take in all those students, we introduced the double track. So there is a constant assessment. So the conversation around a review, I think that we need to get our mind beyond a point in time and understand that it is a continuum.
Let's look at your personal assessment of how we have fared in the implementation of the free SHS policy. From a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you say we've performed so far?
Well, most teachers will say that as a teacher, you don't give a 10 because there is always room for improvement. But on the scale of 1 to 10, I would give it between a 9 and a 9.5. And here's my reason. Of every teacher I have taught at the university level and then also at the pre-tertiary level. And every teacher must at least give a reason why they are giving a student or anything these type of assessment. Now, free SHS came to do about 3 or 4 key things: access, quality, removing financial barriers, and equity. On the score of access, if you take the number of students in school, the last data we have is students who were enrolled in 2014, 2015, and 2016 in all public senior high schools in the country we have just about 800,000, about 811,000. On the score of access, today, if you take the same 3-year group that are in school now, we are at 1.4 million. That is 75% increase in terms of access. I think the free SHS has answered the question of access. On the question of quality, if you take 10 years and what we can measure quality with in terms of an international standard is the WASI examination. If you take the past 10 years and you look at, say, from 2014 to 2024 in terms of the WASI examination, and you look at the subjects that are common to all students, which is the English, Mathematics, Science, and Social Studies. It is the past 4 years, 2020, 21, 22, and 23, which are the first 4 batches of free SHS students, that has consistently scored in all core subject areas 50% or above. Last year, it was 60% or above in all 4 core subject areas. It has not happened over the past 10 years. So on the score of quality, we have done very well. Now, on the score of equity, if you look at people from all socio-economic walks of life who have had access to education, people from Sukusuku DA in the Western North region, people from Gambaga, people from my own hometown of Goso, who are now having access to secondary education, had it not been for free SHS, would have not had the opportunity because of financial barrier. We have created a lot of equity. In terms of gender parity, prior to the free SHS, the percentage of girls to the percentage of boys, and here you're a woman and you appreciate this, in our schools, only about 37% were women. The other 63% were boys. As I speak to you now, we are about 47% girls. So on the score of equity in terms of socioeconomic and gender parity, free SHS has opened the doors for children to have more access. And then in terms of the removal of financial barriers, when we came in 2017 and we looked at secondary education in all its forms, what we realized is that if you look at the data of students who pass and are given admission to senior high school, nationally, about 26%, so about 1 in 4 students, were not going to school nationally. Now, if you did a data desegregation or disaggregation of this data, and you looked at the students who were in the northern part of the country who benefited from even just the feeding scholarship, we saw that only 11.5%, or about 1 in 8.5, 1 in 10.5, or 1 in 10, were not taking up admission. Whereas that same disaggregation of data, it was 35% in the South where they were not benefiting from the northern scholarships. So 3.5 in 10 were not going. As I speak to you now, last year, we had a 98% admission take-up rate. So on the score of the removal of financial barriers to the free SHS, this government has done extremely well. So at least on those 4 scores, obviously, there are still areas that need to be improved. But if I am scoring free SHS on those score 4s as an academic, based on the things that it was coming to do, that's why I'm giving it about a 9 to a 9.5.
I like the fact that you agree that there are indeed areas to improve. Let me sandwich these 2 questions as we wrap up with the conversation. First, your preparation for WAEC and your thoughts about the free SHS bill before Cabinet, seeking to bind successive governments to ensure the implementation of the free SHS policy.
Well, number one, in terms of preparation for the WASI, what we do and what we continue to do in the Ghana Education Service in terms of intervention is that we bring all of our the department heads in the core subject areas. They go to a workshop where they receive training by chief examiners of the West African Examination Council so that they can understand the challenges that students face. We share with our schools all of the chief examiners' reports so that they are able to prepare their students. The teachers are able to understand what topics, areas students tend to avoid so that they can do some revision. So those preparations are ongoing, and we are very confident that our students are well prepared to take the WASI examination. And then support that we give to teachers in terms of academic intervention grants to ensure that they're able to support all students to be able to take the examination. We are doing what we need to do to make sure that no child is left behind. On the question of the free SHS bill, I think it is a conversation that is not even yet before Parliament. The last time that there was a lot of conversation around it, it was a proposal that the Honourable Minister was discussing with the Cabinet of the Republic. And I believe that once it leaves the Cabinet of the Republic, the members of Parliament who are the ones that look at bills that are brought to them will go through the proper debate to ensure that that law is either passed or amendments are made to an existing law to achieve the same thing. So as of now, it is a conversation that I don't think has yet been laid before Parliament formally, but I believe when it gets there, they'll go through the media process, the parliamentary processes and procedures to address the question that has been put before them.
Thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We've been speaking to the Deputy Director General, Quality and Access Control at the Ghana Education Service. My name is Faustina Safo. Have a pleasant day if you enjoy the rest of our programs.